The Coca-Cola product placement in Stranger Things season 3 was some of the most blatant and awkward product placement I have ever witnessed. No spoilers. Look, I have no problem with doing product placement in shows. Character is at a restaurant and drinking X brand soda, great. Who cares as long as it seamlessly fits into the scene. But in Stranger Things 3, they literally stop the action. One character holds a perfectly framed can of Coke in front of the camera, and everyone talks about Coca-Cola for a while. Meanwhile, the world is literally about to end. But nah, let's sit here and discuss Coca-Cola. It was like that Mike Myers bit, only not a spoof. Come on, Duffer Brothers. You're better than this. Congratulations, you have just found another meta egg where we look at kind of meta references and meta Easter eggs and meta homages and how all of that relates to the real world. And so, you know what? Let's get cracking, bro. All right. Now we can settle in, we can stretch. I see Mytho class 01 is already in the chat room, and I appreciate that. I've looked into a lot of the stuff you've said lately, and we're going to be talking about clowns a little bit, like you mentioned once before. So before that, though, I really kind of wanted to start talking about a theory. Now, I've looked at some of the Easter egg things, and we're going to read through a bunch of them. But I have a theory first that I want to see if I have any success in actually being correct about. And this is kind of like the one that we had yesterday where I was talking about clowns are back on the menu, boys. No, I have a they are, man, because we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyways, we were right about a theory about the whole King mob being somebody else kind of validated that a little bit. And so I've got another theory that I want to state out in front, and then we'll see if anybody else scoops it up underneath any of the articles that we're reading. So before we get into the clowns and whatnot, I want to mention the fact that earlier in season 2, the pumpkin patch was alluded to being the same as the tree farm in Back to the Future. It happens multiple times. They're driving along and they hit the sign and then they're in a pumpkin patch. And a lot of people, not just me, but we talked about a bunch of them, they associated that to Back to the Future. Now, here's this is good, man. You're going to like this because season 3 takes a large chunk. I mean, up until this point, people were saying, oh, his sneakers look like Michael J. Fox and so forth. But we really have a big, solid homage in season 3 with Back to the Future with actual scenes from the movie the using the movie's soundtrack in the background, and it's powerful, bro. But it reminds me of movies like Breathless, or perhaps even like Inglorious Bastards, where it's like the movie penetrates into real life. And so, but regardless, I think that that's a cue. I think it's a clue, bro. Oh man, this is gonna get good. Woo! Okay, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay, so the main running joke in Back to the Future is that it used to be 2 pines. Marty runs over 1 pine, and the mall becomes 1 pine. It becomes just Pine Mall and not 2 Pines Mall. All right. The main plot point, twist, spoiler, whatever, in season 3 is that there's Russians who have built this tunnel system underneath all of Hawkins basically using the structure from season 2 that the Mind Flayer was using with the vines, trying to make the whole map that Sean Austin figures out, so forth, so on. The theory is that the Russians used the spot most likely to be, that's the hub. In season 2, it's the hub. That would have made it easier for the Russians to start digging the tunnel systems. And so they would have built Starcourt Mall on top of the pumpkin patch or close to it, wherever the hub is. They built it on top of the hub. They built it up on top of okay, so here it goes. Here it goes. I think this whole waters. So in the same way that we discovered that Sean Astin was talking about moving to Maine and talking about a clown getting in his face, and then he told the clown that he wasn't real, and that clown basically, that's exactly what happens in it. So we know that Sean Astin is potentially in the Duffer Brothers universe, the kid from Derry, right? Okay. And then we also know that our homeboy Finn Wolfgard ended up playing that like character in the new version that came out a little bit later of it. So we have like 2 little hits with it, kind of strengthening that. What if we can do the same thing with the mall, and the actual mall, Starcourt, is the mall from Back to the Future? Boom. That's what I'm saying. I think it's the same mall. I think that they are in the pumpkin patch. That's basically the tree. And then it's like the Duffer Brothers universe is that's the mall. Yes, he is also Samwise Gamgee. Yes, there's magic in the Twin Pines milk. That's you're on the, you're ready for the clowns. I don't even know if you know the clown part that I'm gonna break out for you. It's gonna be interesting. Let's see, we'll get rid of this. I read that to show you that there was a lot of capitalism that was expressed in both the storyline and the reviews of Stranger Things 3. What's also interesting is the time period. We're talking about 2019. Last time we were talking about 2016, 2017, and now we're coming into a little bit later on, right before COVID, and then COVID being the the thorn in the Stranger Things side that has kept these kids from aging correctly. Um, but here, let's read a little bit, and then I'll go back to the chat in standard operation. Spoilers ahead. Netflix Stranger Things is known as a reliable fun romp through 80s nostalgia, filled with references to classic music, films, and science fiction. It follows a band of kids who roam their small town freely in a way that generations of children since went into an era of it. Helicopter parenting. But I mean, this story is the story of helicopter parenting with this is with Will's mom. I have been able to along the way discovering and defeating the slimy monsters that secret government science experiments have unleashed on their tiny town of Hawkins. The show is an exercise in something between wistfulness for a small town Americana or times past, unapologetic nerdiness and campy horror, as well as a biting social commentary. I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, I think that it was kind of used as a political commentary. I don't know. They really kind of keep politics out of it. The kids do run free in a very Amblin style way. And but it is Americana. I mean, the whole showdown happens in this church in season 3 to commerce, and they use the word commie over and over. But also, you can see like the product placement. There's a lot of throwback accuracy to the actual packagings of the time. There's constant. I mean, it's just wild. There's a constant tug towards the whole idea of what the commerce or what the changing in economics of the 80s did to pop culture. On the surface, Stranger Things has been following an established outline for stories about spunky kids saving the day and doing so exceptionally well with standout performances and emotional nuance. This led earlier reviewers to glory the show's non political fun, its stylized aesthetics, and its nostalgic references. Since then, however, some have complained that the show's creators, the Duffer Brothers, have stuck too closely to the script. We've known exactly what to expect from the show, but this season, taking on the predictable topics of romance and changing dynamics of teenage friendships as the gang enters high school. Sure, there are some mild riffs on the motifs. It's implied that Will might be gay, and Steve, you know what, I have to admit, like, this is a stronger hold that I had forgotten about the sexual orientation of Will. Right. And Steve Robbins' relationship lands out the accepted conventions of teens on TV, but for the most part, we've seen it before. And as much as it's still enjoyable, it's also getting tedious. There are complaints that the show isn't adding much to the cultural conversation besides summer fun. Again, this one takes place in July, so the other one was Christmas, then one was Halloween, and now the focus of the whole show is basically New Year's. All right, let's see. Let's see. Twin Pines Mall with all the clowns as its mascot. Season, what year was season 2 and 3 set in? So 84, 85. Season 2 was 84. Season 3 is 85. And hence where we get, that's when Back to the Future enters the theaters. And that's the theater, that's the movie that they go to that plays so well with the actual storyline when they're on the CBs. So it's very interesting. The other movies are important. I did not take a screenshot, but I'll go ahead and mention it now because it probably needs to be mentioned. There's multiple movies there, all that came out within 1985. Now, on the marquee, if I remember correctly, is Daryl, about the little robot boy, which is like June 85. Then there's Cocoon, which is around June 85. There's Back to the Future. And there's two other ones I really don't know, but it basically gives you the date of 85, like July 4th, 1985. What's interesting is Daryl and Cocoon star the same little boy. That boy you might recognize from another movie called A Never Ending Story that came out a year before in 1984. And although A Never Ending Story is not on the marquee, it is the main song that the kids sing at the end of the movie. Isn't that crazy? So that boy's movies, because that guy's got a history of not doing too many movies after those three, all wind up together being wrapped within this one season. Yeah, the right. So the mall is 85. Yes, absolutely. The season, so you can think of it, I think it's like 83 or 84 is season 1, and basically like season 1 must be 83. Season 4 then must be 84. Season 5, because we're at 87 now in season 5. I remember that clearly. It says 1987, but it's like November 87. So basically the 80s in like a very Don Draper type of way. course it was. You'll find out in 30 years. I get it. See, time travel is implied. We also know that this is taken from Montauk, and we know Montauk implies time travel. So there might be a time loop where this goes right back to the beginning. And I think I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that because it seems like that's because you remember they'd made the original Montauk story and they basically were going to like end with one being left and that being Duncan. I really think that, I bet you they could do a whole team. They call it the Hellfire Club, and they do a whole like from the 1990s on of like a superhero team that's like Misfits of Science or something. Okay. I came out in 84 to laugh my ass off. So that's how old you are. You're revealing a little too much, my friend. All right, let's see here. There are complaints. Okay, except this season has a lot to say. When we think of the 80s, we think of Jazzercise, David Bowie, and early Atari consoles. Sure. But we also think of the rise of rampant consumerism that defines America's culture today. Big corporations, cable TV, and the shopping mall. The ultimate symbol of capitalism. See, it's like a temple commerce, the roots of our current late stage capitalism. And this is the real centric topic of this season. Just as much as Stranger Things draws from parts of the 80s we enjoy, like synth music and big scrunchies, it also references the beginning of powerful corporate interest in huge brands, complete with several overt product placements for Coke and the Gap. This season of Stranger Things is about the existential threat of capitalism, and it's never been more relevant. The monster of capitalism looms throughout the show through the physical monsters dripping slime all over the town, or certainly more distracting. Still, the entire show is literally centered around the new shopping mall, Starcourt, which I'm telling you is it's the mall in 1985's Back to the Future. God dang it. A good old-fashioned capitalism is another black market for its names. The Starcourt is symbolizing anything good. I'm just fast-forwarding a little bit. Big band. The mall is nearly as much as the big bad as the Mind Flare. And that's not an accident. The Mind Flare is literally rooted inside the mall, and the two parallel each other all season. The mall is, well, they call it mall rats, right? I mean, they're making a good point because there's one episode that was actually called Mall Rats. And, they're using the rats to build the beast. The Mind Flare is using the rats. So I don't know, there's something to be said. They are definitely making a synonymous analog, the mall being the baddie. See, okay, so no, we need season 3. And chapter 1, Susie, do you copy? Summer brings new jobs and budding romance. But the mood shifts when Dustin's radio picks up. It's called Cerebro, another X-Men quote. See, there's some weird X-Men's definitely I want to mix before I say anything else. I mean, let's see. I'll mark off the stuff that I have talked about. The X-Men is definitely continues through. So our whole theory about 134 seems to be holding tight. The main baddie in this one I have written down as reminding me of the Brood. I want to let's look up the Brood right now, because if you haven't seen the Brood, you need to know about what this is. So the Brood, X-Men. Yeah, boom. Come on, bro. Like, look, this is your monster mouth baddie. That is definitely an inspiration. Look at that. Now, what the Brood would do would take over its host. It was like a parasite. And so the whole theme of what these guys are doing here is very, very similar. And I think the Brood might have been an inspiration. Be interesting if anybody else says that too. I mean, of course, there's some obvious new ones that weren't mentioned before, like Nancy Drew and Magnum PI are new analogs for people like Nancy and Hopper that weren't there before, which kind of like messes with our whole little theory. But at the same time, it tells you that this is moving around. We also get new information about characters like Jonathan Byers. He wields and acts like his mom. You know, Hooper's cabin or Hopper's cabin is definitely like the Evil Dead cabin now. We know that for sure. So Jonathan's weapon would be an axe, but Lucas's weapon seems to be fireworks now. Like that whole scene, bro. That whole scene where they use a big firework called Satan's baby. Again, there's a lot of like connotations to Hawking's being hell. They say there's like something written on one of the signs that says that when they drive by a sign and it says "Welcome to Hell." But the Hellfire Club, Satan's baby, like they are the Hellfire Club. That's who they are. Um, but Lucas's weapon would be the fireworks. And in fact, just like that scene with the Demi Dogs and Hopper, there's something contra about the ending to this one when they use the fireworks against the flare. Gizmo, I wrote a note. It says Gizmo and the Ziploc bags with L. I thought that was a cool little that you might miss. Not only is Max a zoomer now, but she can do first aid. She's kind of a healer. Um, oh, you're clowns. When Alexa dies, when the Russian guy dies, all he sees are clowns. He gets shot, and everything is clown, 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 clown. And of course, he's shot by the Terminator reference guy. Oh yeah, he says, "I'll see you in hell, boy. I'll see you in hell, my boy," which is like the kind of a reference from Empire Strikes Back that would have been coming out at the same time. Like he says, something Hopper says is, "I'll see you in hell." Of course, he is Hellboy. So yeah, now that we can get in to all of this, like I'm wondering if anybody else picked up on those things. Let's see. Chapter 2, the Mall Rats. Boom. Nancy and Jonathan follow a lead. Steve and Robin sign on to a secret mission, and Max and 11 go shopping. And you know, I think that at the beginning they break into a movie, The Evil Dead, and I believe it's the one that takes place in the mall. Yeah. So the first movie they go to, they break in, they go through the Chips Ahoy place or the Scoops Ahoy. They go in, break into a mall. The power shuts down, which is our first clue that the Russians are using power. But the movie is the Romero movie about them being stuck in a mall, right? And of course, he uses zombies in that movie as sort of like this symbol of consumer, like the ever consuming American. I mean, this is Americana in the same way that those zombie movies are. Stranger Things definitely makes it stand as Americana in this one. Mini story script. Yeah, yep, yep. Talked about this. Let's see. Yep, 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 yep. So I just looked it up. There was a D&D animated show running September 1983 to 1985. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's Easter eggs in the new movie about this cartoon. Like you can see the characters and parts of it. But they were all in an amusement park, which is very much like what happens. And then they're zapped into another realm. And of course the characters kind of even resembles, there's an aspect to each of their different styles and weapons and stuff. Again, except with these weapons wouldn't be a shield, it would be like a chainsaw, one would have an axe, one would have like a bag of fireworks. I think there are Pine Mall references in Black Ops as well. All seem the same tooth face. Yeah, those are all representative of the world of the dead too. The whole Beetlejuice and worms are kind of related. Yeah. Illuminati worm. Yeah, there's some people. There's the Great White Worm, Core. There's another movie out there called Core, where it's a giant worm that eats, like it's a machine worm, but it goes to the core of the planet. It's just weird stuff out there with that whole theme. Let's see. So the mall rats, the case of the missing lifeguard, that's where the Nancy Drew stuff comes in with Elle and Max looking for Billy. Will declares a day without girls. Steve and Dustin go out on a stakeout. It's not my fault you don't like girls. And Joyce and Hopper return to Hawkins' lab. The sauna test. This is where the whole thing from Things, Carpenter's Things, is the sauna test is basically the same scene that they use to determine who the thing is. And the real aspects of how it looks, the aesthetics of the monsters and everything really take after Carpenter on this one. Played, strange surprises lurk inside of the old farmhouse and deep beneath the Starcourt Mall. Meanwhile, the mind flare is gathering strength. E pluribus unum. Now, this is another one because we're dealing with mind, like hive mind here. And hive mind is an aspect that's also coming out parallel to the new Stranger Things season, which is pluribus, which is dealing with the same aspect. I'm just going to leave a little note card that has to do with an ancient idea called the quickening from the Bible and other earlier text. But we seem to always use the word pluribus when kind of stating it. It's the whole idea that everybody knows everything and kind of shares they're a mind, like a hive mind. Rick and Morty kind of have also done it, but I just wanted to state that they're using the same dang word right there, pluribus. The bite time running out and an assassin close behind. Hopper's crew races back to Hawkins where Elle and the kids are preparing for war. And then the battle at Starcourt. Terror reigns in a food court where the mind flare comes to collect. But down below in the dark, the future of the world is at stake. Okay, so we see villains targeting the community. Human Connect stuck in both of them. This is America, Erica. Oh, see, that's a good catch right there. And it's a human connection that weakens their allure of capitalist consumption. We often buy things to make ourselves feel better. A new dress to distract from. I thought about that when they have the whole montage of. I'm like, who is buying these kids clothes, man? They're just trying on all kinds of stuff. Like it was almost a segment from Pretty Woman. I'm still a valuable person. How good, worthless. But I mean, like I said, it was just so many people traveling the malls back then. Personally, I feel supported by the love of my friends, and I'm able to identify the capitalist forces influences my desires. It's this system that causes me to feel insecure about jobs or status or money. It doesn't value my cultivated friendships or time spent. This guy's going off like capitalism is a free market. Trickle down is explored. Low man on the totem pole. I mean, I give this person credit for picking out. There's definitely that's there. I wasn't looking for that or noticed that, but that's there. Narcissistic culture and powerful big business has its root in the 80s with Reaganomics, tax cuts, corporate expansion, and cable TV's rise. Materialism was accelerated by savvy branding efforts, both through overt advertising campaigns as well as culture. I mean, the new Coke. There's a whole message in here that there was enough paid to them for their advertising to where it was almost like the cost of an actor, so to speak. Um, and here's another thing about Stranger Things and capitalism that seemed to be a topic and hot conversation at that point of it airing. The dramatic choice is a surprising one, giving the uh, firmly apolitical bent on Stranger Things' first two seasons. There might have been something potentially provocative in its presentation of American scientists and bureaucrats operating in the heart of the heartland as antagonists, but the links between Hawkins' lab and the American government itself was hazily defined at best, allowing the shady bad guys to be enjoyed in isolation from political critique. Season 3 recycles the themes of evils which lurk within, placing its secret lab beneath Starcourt Mall, the institution of neo-drenched capitalism with that which becomes a key location for the fight against the mind flare. But it flips the scripts with its human villain. I don't know, man. It does. It makes the humans more like it makes what's his face Alexa more accessible, so to speak. Break down the many Stranger Things season references you might have missed from the times. Okay, let's get settled. Now we're getting in here. It's been 30 minutes. Everybody's wondering in there. If you haven't clocked off, Mytho class needs some help in the chat room. All right. Holy cow. Goodness gracious. Let's see. Let's see if I covered everything on my list. Yeah. All right, let's see here. One of the best parts about watching a new season of Netflix Stranger Things, besides jumping on the 80s nostalgia bandwagon and solve a new mystery from the upside down, is trying to spot all of the pop culture references that showrunners Matt and Ross Duffer slip into each episode. As self-professed movie fanatics, the Duffer Brothers have been packing in the nods of quintessential 80s flicks since the show's very first episode, and season 3 is no different. But while some of the references are easy to pick up on, like the group's outing to the opening night of Day of the Dead, others, like a throwaway line from Stand By Me, elude easy notice. All right, here are some of the notable movie references from the third season of Stranger Things. Day of the Dead. That said, this is the movie that they sneak in on. All right. And one of the first scenes of season 3 premiere, after spending some quality time with Eleven, Millie Bobby Brown, Mike, Finn Wolford, heads to Hawkins' newest attraction, Starcourt Mall, to meet up with Will, Nota Snape, Schnappy Woppy, Lucas, Michaela McLaughlin, and Max, Sadie Sink, aka Jean Grey, maybe, hopefully, please, for the opening night of The Dawn of the Dead. Day of the Dead was the third installment of director George A. Romero, iconic Night of the Living Dead series, and was described to Romero as a tragedy about how a lack of human communication causes chaos and collapse, even in the smallest little pie slice of society. This theme plays out later in Stranger Things 3 when the groups of Hawkins main players, Elle and her crew, the ice cream shop kids, and the grown-ups fail to communicate when they've learned about the Russians and the mysterious mind flare moth. I don't know. See, I don't know if that person watched that. I would like to say, is Day of the Dead the one in the mall? Is Day of the Dead the one in the mall? Dawn of the Dead, which was famously filmed at Morrowville Mall in Pennsylvania and was the classic piece of zombie. If you're referring to the local Day of the Dead events in a mall near, oh, it's telling me at where I can go find. There's a little clue there. You can watch it if you want. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong about that one. I'm not sure about this guy either. I didn't notice war games. I'm pretty well versed on war games. Let's see what it says. Referenced in episode 1 and 8. I guess the base, because in war games, the kids get into the base. The two-man rule, put in place by the Russians to ensure the gate to be the upside down can neither be open or shut without at least two people present to turn the two keys calls to mind the scene in the seminal hacker flick War Games, where two soldiers must simultaneously turn two kids to launch a mission. Of course, in Stranger Things, Joyce ultimately figures out a way around the security system. But that's weak. That's weak sauce. Come on, Times, be better. Come on, Duffer Brothers, be better. Okay. Ridgemont High is definitely seen in the movie. See, they make this weird. They go from like Dungeons and Dragons to the arcade, and then from the arcade, now we're in like the movie rentals age. And it happens real quick in the matter of like 2 or years. All right, so it doesn't take long for the parallels with Fast Time High to come into play. And the season's first episode, Zac Efron lookalike Billy, Darcy Montgomery, Darkry Montgomery, struts by a group of eager Hawkins housewives, including Mike's mom, Karen Wheeler, at the pool, and nothing but a red. You know what? Did I even write that on here? Holy crap, I almost messed that up. Oh, we've got to talk about Holly. Oh, my jaw dropped, bro. There is such a big scene with Holly Wheeler in this, which really supports my whole theme that she's the main character in all of this. It's kind of awesome. My bad. I'll be right back. All right. Let's see. All right. So, so sure, I guess the scene is a gender flipped recreation of the iconic Fast Times dream sequence. Emerged from the pool in a red bikini at the same song. I did not know enough about Ridgemont High to know that one, but I guess that's a good clean hit, because later it's definitely seen inside. Later, Dustin insists that his girlfriend from Camp Nowhere, Susie, is hotter than Phoebe Cates. Okay, of course, the rest of the group find the claim difficult to believe, and one final nod to Cates. In the finale, Steve knocks over a cardboard cutout of her Fast Time character while interviewing for a job at Family Video. So that's clean. That's clean. The sailor-inspired uniform Steve is forced to wear while working at Scoops Ahoy, complete with hair-ruining hat, also brings to mind the pirate garb that Fast Times Brad Hamilton must sport for his job at Captain Hook Fish and Chips. That's good and solid. All right, let's see. Stand By Me, more continued references to Stand By Me. Let's see here. Remember the famous scene in Stand By Me where Gordy Will Wheaton tells the story about David Hogan, Andy Limburg, aka Lardass, competing in a pie eating contest? Well, considering the Duffer Brothers' reverence for the work of Stephen King, it does seem coincidental that Lardass is the insult Billy chose to hurl at the boy he spots running at the pool while on lifeguard duty. It's kind of weak. I know the scene. It does happen, but that's kind of weak sauce. I mean, I don't know. How you guys feel about that one? We have enough Stand By Me without having to include that. Let's see. Evil Dead 2, The Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness. 87, 93. Let's see. When Nancy wakes up panicking that she's going to be late for work at the Hawkins Gazette, there's an Evil Dead poster hanging on the wall in Jonathan's room. We already saw that. The show throws in, and this is what I was saying. Like, that poster was there before, but no one made the connections until it's shown at a later time, because the Duffer Brothers had managed their whole scenes. Like, they knew each of their sets in a friggin' Bible. They had everything that they needed to know. Isn't that like such a good, well-planned, stick to the friggin' formula type of ordeal they did here? I mean, oh, I get people picking on it and everything, but come on, this is well done. The show throws in another reference to director Sam Raimi's franchise of cult horror classics, and the final scene of the premiere, when Billy is dragged through the old steelworks by an unseen force before grabbing onto a door frame for dear life. In the end, Billy's efforts are futile, and he disappears screaming into the darkness, just like Evil Dead's Ash is sucked through the portal in Army of Darkness. Later in the scene, the Mind Flayers' attack on Hopper's David Harbor cabin invokes the secluded cabin setting of Evil Dead, while the way in which the severed limb of the Mind Flayer crawls away after Lucas chops it off with an axe is a dead ringer for how Ash's evil hand scurries off in Evil Dead 2. Maybe, okay. I'll accept it. I'll allow it. I mean, that's not bad. Let's see. Star Wars Return of the Jedi. When Dustin radios to his friend that he's back in walkie-talkie range while returning from Camp Nowhere, he checks. I mean, that's a Marvel reference. He checks in as Gold Leader. This seems like it could only be a reference to, oh yeah, Lando. It's just another Lando. They used Lando a lot already. Fast forward to the scene in the finale where Steve and Robin are interviewing for jobs at Family Video, and Steve names the one with the teddy bears, aka Ewoks, as his favorite Star Wars movie, for another Duffer nod to Return. Yeah, they double up. I think it's like you need 3 targets to consider a bullseye. Like boom, boom, boom. The Gremlins, 1984, an electric camera intervention that Dustin brings from home from the Camp Nowhere, sure looks a lot like the hammer device. Okay, all right, boom, 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 the Hammermatic. Okay, I mean, he is Gizmo, right? Like, not Gizmo, Gadget, the guy, the dude from the Korean dude from the Goonies. I mean, that's basically what Dustin represents, right? Like the gadget guy. Like, they call him Mr. Fantastic because he has all the inventions, right? And he knows how to run all of the tech. But he's also got his joint, no collarbones and stuff. So he's a little bit wiggly. So, all right. The Fly. Let's see. Although the Duffers appear to pay homage to several of body horror masters David Cronenberg's movies in season 3, like a whole bunch of Cronenberg stuff, the one that seems to have influenced them the most is The Fly. When is The Fly? 86, I guess it's in that wheelhouse. The one that seems to, okay, in today's world, to Cronenberg, something means to turn it into a grotesque being that resembles one of the mutated creatures from the director's movies. Oh, Rick, you Cronenberg! You Cronenberg the entire timeline, Rick! So when Hawkins' rats begin horrifically transforming into withering masses of sentient blood and guts in episode 1, it seems likely that the town was a Cronenberg situation. Or Hawkins has been totally Cronenberg. But it's the closing minutes of episode 4 where both Billy and Mrs. Driscoll begin exhibiting the physical effects of the mind flares inhibiting their bodies that truly recalled Dr. Seth Brundle's, Jeff Goldblum's, gruesome transformation into a fly hybrid on Cronenberg's What's a Madingy. I'm saying, yeah. I'm saying that's good. Pleased to Max to help in the group traps him in a sauna. Also sounds eerily similar to Brundle's when he's realizing that his science experiment has gone wrong. Rabid, 1977. Don't know it. This is going to be fun. Billy's car crash turned body invasion storyline definitely sports similarities to the character arc of Rose, Marlon Chambers, and Cronenberg's Rabbit. Another Cronenberg. Cronenberg in aisle 12. We have a Cronenberg in aisle 12. Just as Billy spreads the mind flares infections throughout Hawkins, after a motorcycle crash leads to Rose developing a taste for blood, she becomes a patient zero for a zombie outbreak that makes people vulnerable to attacks by those closest to them. Bum ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum ba dum. The Dead Zone, 1983. Cronenberg rears his head once again when Elle begins using, it's Cronenberg and Stephen King, wouldn't it be? Her powers to spy on Billy and find himself about to feed Heather to the mind flare. She later tunes into Heather's headspace and sees her submerged in Billy's ice-filled bathtub, begging for help before she's sucked away into the watery depths. Although Elle is seeing what's currently happening rather than the future, these visions share many similarities with the premonitions that Johnny begins having after emerging from his coma in Dead Zone. Both characters sense that others are in danger by using their respective powers and then try to help. Even our 11 and Max discovering Billy's body's bathroom is also reminiscent of the Dead Zone scene in which Jimmy and Sheriff Bannerman by Tom Skerritt and Frank's Nicholas Campbell's bloody body in them. Okay. I think they just threw in another Cronenberg. And I can't believe they didn't mention Stephen King. Like, how could you mention Dead Zone and not mention Stephen King? Like, that's just weird. Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? There's no reason to do that. Alien, 1979. Of course, if you've seen Ridley Scott's space horror classic Alien, then you've probably noticed that the way in which the mind flare monster latches onto people's face to take over their bodies is extremely similar to the Xenomorph's terrifying facehugger attack method in that movie. Jaws, again. Carrie Ewell's corrupted mayor Larry Klein. See, Carrie, The Princess Bride is an 80s. I guess that's what else would he be attached to as far as an 80s like icon? Okay, so I get that he's basically the mayor from the Jaws again. It definitely seems to pay off on Mary Hamilton's Larry Vaughn. So there's Larry Klein and Larry Vaughn, and is unwilling to close Amity Island's beaches and Jaws, not to mention that the 4th of July setting at Hopper's drunken assertion, I can do anything I want. See, this is the weird, like all of the, like it basically unifies the entire lore of the 80s. Because I've seen a meme in The Predator where somebody's basically saying that Hopper is the individual from Predator that they are sort of talking about when they're talking about a guy who escapes from like a Russian prison and stuff. So Hopper knew the guys from Predator is basically what they're saying. And so all of this stuff is sort of like unifying. The Dairy's involved, X-Men's involved, like it's just wild. And it's all coming out like the stuff that's happening to them that's like that's it's sort of like saying that it happens to them and then it's like reflected in the movies afterwards because they're running into the pumpkin patch and then seeing the movie. And so it's becoming the movie. There's like this weird loop where their reality is playing within the movie that they're showcasing. So the Karate Kid 1984, who else happens to be featured in the issue of Super Teen magazine that Elle is reading at the beginning of the episode 3 than 80s teen heartthrob Ralph Macchio? Yeah, they mention it. The one and only Karate Kid, the bandana around the head look that Lucas rocks beginning in episode 5. Okay, is also clearly inspired. Maybe. The Shining, well, the Duffer Brothers homage to The Shining a lot. With the whole family Bowers is like the whole family Bowers. Just, their whole weapon is an axe, bro. They're all Jack. It's like a family of Jacks. The Duffer Brothers homage to Stephen King's continues with yet another nod that we didn't mention before, Dead Zone, but The Shining. When Elle tries to find out what happened to Heather using her telepathic power, the way the red door to Heather's house materializes in her vision looks a lot like the Shining scene where blood burst out of the in the episode The Mullet when Billy smashes through the glass window on the sauna door and strikes the attack. Okay, reminiscent of Jack Nicholson's infamous door breaking in The Shining. The Duffer Brothers even told actor Montgomery that they wanted a villain like Jack Torrance, and when they cast him in the roles. So yeah, okay. There's a trail. I'll tell you the way that they show the inside of people's heads is almost directly from Stephen King lore. Like Stephen King attached all of his stories together in an intercontextuality way that we were talking about Stranger Things doing, where everything's kind of like together. But one of the things that he did was to show the telepathic communications between individuals was almost always written the same in Stephen King novels. And they've used that visual aspect in their communications between people like Holly and Max in season 5 and stuff of that nature. It's not necessarily the same as what Elle does with the Sea of Glass, but when Elle goes into people's memories or when people interfere with her memories, it's very, very, very Stephen King-esque. And a lot of that lore comes out of The Shining because all of those people were rooting around in other people's heads. And so The Shining would have to do with all of the kids that were at the Montauk, Hawkins place. And the next episode, the moment when Billy smashes through the glass window, the sauna, we also another room scene connecting with Flay. Bryce punches through the window at the hospital door in pursuit of Nancy and Jonathan and greets them with a menacing "Hi there," aka the Stranger Things version of "Here's Johnny." The creepy way in which Bruce chases Nancy through the hospital while calling after her also brings to mind Jack's hunt for Wendy. Of course, I would say the axes are a big thing. The whole axes. Let's go back over here. AI is trying to be helpful. What an invention. Oh, I know what you're talking about. His dad was Inspector K. Oh, yeah. That's how the dad in Gremlins is. The dad in Gremlins is like, that's what they were saying. Let me find the name. Sea spiders. What are we talking about here? Oh. Oh, I know what scene you're talking about. Oh, yeah. The name Helena means the shining one. Does it really? Carol Ann from Poltergeist is what you're asking. The Misfits wrote a song about poltergeists, and it's called The Shining. That's an interesting, that's wild. I'm loving that. That is wild. All right, let's see. All right. After Erica helps Dustin, Steve, and Robin break into the storage room where Russians are keeping their secret supplies, Steve's removal of the mysterious test tube is extremely similar to Jurassic Park scene in which nerdy Wayne Nerdre steals the dinosaur embryos. Not to mention that Dustin and Erica enter the room. I don't know if I agree. I think that that was more like the plutonium from Back to the Future. I think they're wrong on this one. Movies, the embryos are stored. Erica's journey through the air ducts. It's a cool little sync. They talk about Cyborg from DC too. Like there's more DC references in this season with Elle and Max reading like Wonder Woman and things of that nature. There's a lot of cool, there's like a just different feel to everything else that they had been referencing once before. Through the Air Ducts also brings to mind harrowing sequences in which Alan, Ellie, and the kids escape from the velociraptors. Okay. I was thinking more of, well, I be honest with you, that looked like Die Hard to me, but whatever. On top of all of that, this is whole mind flare monster chasing the car scene. It's shot in much the same way. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I guess the T Rex and the mind flare scene are very similar. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. Okay. When Erica is getting ready to crawl through Starcourt, let's see what else is on here. The Thing, we know that one. The Terminator, that one's given. Let's see, The Godfather came out about a decade before, when Hopper uses his police badge to commandeer the yellow convertible from unsuspecting license plates reads Todd Father. Oh, boo, junk. Okay, I mean, it's there, but come on now. Harper's 7-Eleven, where they steal the infamous, reminds some viewers of the convenience store from Heather's. Reality Bites. See, I was thinking Die Hard. That's 88. Although it's not an 80s movie, Reality Bites, another movie with another convenience store scene, also comes to mind when Hopper, Joyce, and Alexia make a snack run. But that's just because of Winona. Interesting concept. First Blood Rambo. Fat Rambo. Well, that's true. They do call him that. Back to the Future, of course. Let's see what they say about this one. Dustin and Erica are in the desperate need of a place to hide while they wait for Steve and Robin to come down from whatever drug the Russians injected them with, sodium pentothal. They decide to sit them down in front of a screening of Back to the Future, which is playing at the Starcourt Mall movie theater. Robin then offers a pretty succinct explanation of the cult's classic's confusing title. He has to go back to the future because he's in the past. So the future is actually the present, which is his time. Dawn of the Dead. That's the one that's in the mall. So they do reference it. Lord of the Rings. What? Let's see. Lord of the Rings movie came out in 2000s. The book trilogy was a classic 80s. They've mentioned first off, they mention it multiple times because they say Weathertop. Yeah, there is. It doesn't tell they head to Weathertop. And then the other one, they called the place Mirkwood. So I don't know if they had anything in season 2, but they definitely had probably them talking to the AV guy. Okay, National Lampoon's Griswold family's code name Dustin assigns to the group made up of L. Will. Okay, and pull directly. Okay, all right. Wizard of Oz. There's some weird Wizard of Oz stuff going on here because one of the other movies that was playing in the theater was Return to Oz. And then later there's a Wizard of Oz poster on the wall. Yeah, in Susie's room. But one of the movie theaters, so in the movies we have Cocoon, we have Daryl, we have Back to the Future, and we have Return to Oz. Let's see here. Okay, so the Never Ending Story. So then again, they're mentioning, so that's the same kid in Never Ending Story. It's the same kid in Daryl, and it's the same kid who plays in Cocoon, which is wild. I think that that's the end of this one. All right, so we'll cut that out. We'll see if there's some. Oh, no, I want that back. Give me that back. Jeez. Dorks. Well, look at the observation skills on that guy. All right, which come about because of the song Helena from the album I used. However, Rice in the Time was really into this. All right, let's see here. In the summertime in Hawken, Indiana, and that can only mean one thing. Your Stranger Things Season 3 Easter eggs and reference guide is here. Well, tell us something we don't know, peeps. The season opens with a brief prologue on June 28th, 1984, before jumping a year later to 1985. Summer 1984 is when Red Dawn came out. The movie begins with implications of Soviets invading the Heartline. The only children can save us. So you got this one right. We wrote a little bit more about Red Dawn here. They actually say the word Red Dawn in a later episode. It's probably a coincidence, but the initial shot of the Soviets' laser shooting through the wall felt like an amped up version of the scene from Real Genius with a dash of 12 Monkeys Time Machine. Okay. Word. When he isn't named yet, while he isn't named yet, we get a glimpse of the guy who will likely be this season's terrifying, unstoppable Soviet batting. If this were actually 1985, it would be Dolph Lundgren. The tall Russian strangles one of the scientists like Darth Vader. Okay, that's valid. Tapes visible in front of Eleven's boombox include Corey Hart's Boy in the Box. How about a Dick in the Box? Where are the other freaks? All we need is you. So a very timely June 85 release, and there's an album with the Mike 11 Makeout Jam, Never Surrender comes on. 11 has posters on a generic dinosaur and a butterfly on her wall. They also just so happen to look like Godzilla and Mothra. Likely not a coincidence. So they mention coincidences a lot. And this season and in season 5, like there are no such thing as coincidences is a common theme to this whole thing. Take note that Hopper is watching Magnum PI. Later, he's dressing like Magnum PI. Oh, Sam and Diane. Yeah, that's valid. The Starcourt Mall is absolute perfection, and there are plenty of relics throughout. Sam Goody, anyone? But it's really great that one of the first things you see is a camera repair shop, which helps hammer home just how much has changed in the last 30 years. In fact, a running theme of this season is how the mall is causing traditional storefronts to close, just as how in our present day, The internet, specifically Amazon, has helped bring about the death of the mall. In the movie theater, you can spot posters for Cocoon and Back to the Future, and then the kids sneak in a screening of Day of the Dead, which opens smack in the middle of the two releases. John Harrison's synthy Day of the Dead score certainly smacks of the Stranger Things opening credits too. Also, it hints of a zombie-like invasion coming with Day of the Dead. In Will's bedroom, there's a poster of the original The Evil Dead, as well as one of REM's similar albums, Murmur. I don't think that that's Will's, but that's his brother Jonathan's. All right, these guys fucked that up. Inescapable with mid Stewart's Huey Lewis and the News soundtrack, their frantic get ready to for work montage with working for a living, that tune. And so we could do a whole thing on just the move, the words of the soundtracks, the music in this, but we don't have time for that. Dustin's gold letter returning to the base is an oblique or gold leader. We know that. There's plenty of nobody's getting the thing. It's I'm telling you, it's Twin Pines Mall. That's the theory. Nobody's getting it. Nobody's gonna see it. They're getting all the rest of them. They're not seeing it though. Which is the cover of Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. Dustin also tries to defend himself with Farrah Fawcett's Hairspray. The Hairspray is studs with Charlie Angels, but that was established last year. All right. Dustin naming his invention Cerebro is, of course, whatever. We know what that means. Dustin carries the mythical Susie to Phoebe Cates, which anybody of the 80s could tell you is the high praise. And then we got that one. The inclusion of Jake Busey, a nod to Gary Busey. But, he was also in, let's see, Starship Troopers. $1997. Okay. All right. Save the cock or wait. Radio Shack being out of business feels like a meta joke. And it's funny too, because the other guy worked at Radio Shack. He was like, I got to find a job at another Radio Shack. And we know that those don't exist anymore. Are the Save Down Tile Flyers a nod to the Save the Clock Tower from Back to the Future? They should have just used the same setting. They should have just used the city that Gremlins and Back to the Future takes place in, and everything that happens in Hawkins should have just taken place in that same set. That would have been so meta. Karen is drinking a new Coke poolside as she waits for Billy's appearance. The April 1985 marketing gimmick was famously a failure since everyone preferred the taste of the original formula. Karen must be on the tail end of her supply since Coca-Cola Classic returned to shelves by summer of that year. It's funny too because they show the old style can, and then they crushed it. Busey was in Silver Bullet. You said, okay, you're talking about his dad, Gary Busey. Well, his son's in this one. I think that's a good, strong 80s classic around the same time period. More than yeah. That's dope. Okay, so Billy calling them poor kids loud ass. Poor Joyce Byers watching Cheers by herself is missing Bob Newby. Interesting, Bob is shown in a flash lamenting the breakup of Cheers star-crossed lover Sam and Diana, wishing they would get back together again already. But 1984 was only the start of the famous breakup in season 2. Plus, some Stranger Things viewers might be wishing the same thing for Hopper and Joyce rather than Bob. Okay. Poor kid, blah, blah, blah. It's a deliberate reference to the infamous pie eating contest. Come on, man. Other great music cues in the episode, including the Stray Cats, Rock This Town, Cutting Crews, I Died in Your Arms, the Cars moving in stereo, and the insufferable, miserably awful garbage that is I Can't Find the Feeling by REO Speedwagon. The Hawkins Post editors are kicking around the idea of Iran, no doubt focusing on the attempted release of American hostages. Oh, the October surprise. The exploring rats in the random mill feels like a riff on Graveyard Shift. Yeah, that's valid. Episode 3, the mall rats, the stranger beings backlit in blue approaching Billy Sure feel like an intentional nod to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a movie this show has thrown plenty of love to over the years. They also are shown in flashbacks to hug his face, a la Alien, which are the Mind Flayer's MO since the first season. The army of people implied to take human forms of their host, including Billy, is very similar to Invasion of Body Snatchers, the original movie of which was also a Cold War story about the terror of the Soviets. Collectivist Invasion and the Philip Kaufman remake is pretty damn good too. Hopper is enjoying a delicious bowl of Honey Smacks cereal, which was formerly known as Sugar Smacks, before that was determined to maybe not be the best thing. And of course, he's having a blast singing along to Jim Croce's You Don't Mess Around with Jim during his moment of. I think there's 2 Croce songs in there. Max has an endless poster in her bedroom, which makes perfect sense. Less impressive for its time, perhaps, is the poster of 1982's The Things on Mike's basement wall. The John Carpenter film was reviled in its time, but went on to become a sci-fi cult classic. And The Thing is really like that's the Easter egg bomb that they waited 2 years to have, which is kind of interesting. So we know the Duffer Brothers are sort of like putting stuff in the background. We're not knowing what's going on, and then blah da 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 da. Yeah, they can't. See, David and Andres can't interrupt me here. I am the master of the microphone here at MetaX. Hey. People protesting outside town hall is like the protest before the mayor about closing the beaches in Jaws. Only now they want them all closed instead of worrying about a shark. They've played the Jaws card way too many times. Mayor Larry Klein kind of acts like the Jaws guy, and that he was in Bride. We know that. Is also wearing similar blue striped shirt like Larry Vaughn wears in Jaws. Okay, so there's a parallel of that. My Baloney and My Sharona. Of course, the science teacher is a Weird Al fan. He's rocking out to My Baloney, a parody of the Knacks' My Sharona. That one is from 1975. It's a surprise that he isn't listening to what the AI's then new release, Dare to Be Stupid, which hit stores just a week or so before this season of Stranger Things takes place in 1985. The exploding rats becoming weird gelatin things feels like the Blob. It actually feels like, dude, it's The Thing. And while the 1958 movie Bo Stephen McQueen, one of the most unforgettable theme songs in movie history, the look of the little blobs here feel like the actual quite darn good 1988 remake. The infection of Billy's arm sure feels like deadite poisoning in the Evil Dead franchise. Yeah, that's true. There's a Taco Bell coming soon to Starcourt Mall. Sure, this is one of the handy product placements, but also there was a time when Taco Bells were not quite as ubiquitous as they are today. So there was a time where stuff got in there. See? What is this? You are a genius. So are they, though, you know. But yeah. But they're always trying to show me down, man. They're always trying to slow me down. They're like, Will, pump the brakes. Don't talk about this stuff that's going to get us yanked off of YouTube. You know, you know, I'm bitter. No, I love those guys. That shopping montage sets to Madonna's Material Girl is fun, but again, there's something vaguely Stranger Thingy about Nile Rodgers' production and the synths on that song. There's also a Sam Goody music store, and yes, this is exactly how they looked. We also spotted glimpses of Ars Julius. I feel like they made a whole mall, and the mainstay and hot dog on a stick. The science teacher having a tabletop creation of the town in his garage for experiments feels like Doc Brown's garage in Back to the Future. Hopper's new shirt for his date is inspired by watching Tom Selleck in Magnum P.I. I can do anything I want. I'm the chief of police, is what drunken Chief Brody says while pouring himself a tall glass of wine in Jaws. Oh, so that was lifted right from Jaws. That's a nice little nugget. Isn't that cool? That's awesome. All right. Stranger Things Series 3, The Case of the Missing Lifeguard, which is like Nancy Drew. That's what this is. Ralph Macchio gets a shout out. We've done that. Sees Wild feels very much like John Carpenter's adaptation of Christine. Oh, I can see that. License plate PCE235. Is that what Christine's is? Because they do show his license plate often. And I really couldn't make any sync out of it. But if that's like a Stephen King reference, that's kind of dope. The first girl infected is named Heather. That also happens to be the name of the first victim in Winona Brothers. Oh, so that's a better Heather. Your other Heather bullshit was like unsubstantiated. Like, this is better. Upon finding Penthouse magazines in Billy's beside table, Max reacts by saying, "Gag me with the spoon." This phrase is one of the many adapted from Valley speak. Gag me with the spoon. I used to say it, but I had a place where it came from. I feel like it came from Punky Brewster or something. In Billy's room, there appears to be a label from a bottle of Malibu rum. Yes, there is. If you've never had the displeasure, this is a coconut-flavored rum, specifically to make teenagers drink in the vast quantities that they would regret later. The old editor of Dean of Geek may have been a bad experience when he was 16, maybe. He won't say for sure. That was his sink, not ours. It will be really easy to Billy's musical taste into just one half-assed hair metal nonsense, but instead, dude has a poster of Tank's debut album, Fifth Hounds of Hades, on his wall. Respect. See, there's a lot of this hell symbolism that's played over and over and over again, as we've said before. Dustin says they were hunting Russians when they're looking for someone tall, blonde, not smiling, which feels like a direct Rockies 4 reference when Ivan Draco to a T, whose movie opened on right after this. So they cheated a little. Dustin and Steve accidentally stumbled. This is what we're saying. The stuff is happening, and then the movies are coming out. Very, very fascinating what they're trying to do. So something that H.P. Lovecraft did this a lot, and Charles Dickens did this a lot. Robert Anton Wilson did this a lot, that they would mix like real life events into their fictions. So it was harder to realize what was true and what was not. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild, man. It's wild. I accidentally stumbled upon a jazzercise class when looking for Russian spies. The physical fitness as fun franchise may have gotten a start in earlier decades, but jazzercise was over-popularized by Olivia Newton-John's music video for Physical in 1981. Let's get physical, physical. Robin discovers that the intercepted code refers to deliveries coming in from the Chinese restaurant and Kaufman Shoes, which is not likely a nod to director Philip Kaufman, who is known for his work on the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which definitely inspired the season and this episode in particular. Both this episode title and the asshole mocking Nancy with the mysterious case of the missing fertilizer are playing on Nancy Drew books. Yes, they are. Dustin is rocking a Weird Al shirt this episode. It may be from his N3D album. That's interesting because we got 2 hits for Weird Al then. Castlebuyer has piles of old issues of Dragon magazine, which was essential reading for any serious dungeon D&D player for years, and in which he rips up and stuff. The episode ends on a serious invasion of the body snatchers vibe and zombies. Don McLean's American Pie was already a classic in 85. It came out in 71, but it never goes out of style. Okay, well, episode 4, the sauna test. How are we doing, guys? Are we feeling all right? Let's see. The years we were living in time of Demolition Man, 2006. Oh, wait, came out in 1903. It was loaded with a date. Oh, I love Charles David without passion, though. We all love David. I've met the guy. He's a weird human being. He's one of the best, though. Stranger Things Season 3, Episode 4, The Sauna Test. Readers, get us the issue numbers of those DC comics. Oh, yeah, because there's a shit ton of them everywhere. Those comics are probably loaded with references to what they're talking about, too. Poor old Doris is giving us some serious Evil Dead vibes in this episode. Larry claiming that his Russian spy friend is Arnold Schwarzenegger telegraphs how Terminator-y this guy is about to become. Robin has to correct Steve when he says Dustin can bend like gumbo. Again, they're calling him Mr. Fantastic. Being unable to squeeze through the air vents, even with the child, feels a little bit like a joke at Die Hard's expense. The mysterious containers the Russians are keeping on the same power cells as Alien, and also strong resemblance of canisters from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I guess so. Sauna test. That's the whole sauna test is the thing. Those ice cups were everywhere in the 80s. Billy's mind flayer transformation has a distinctly isochrotopic vibe, as does his lobbing off into the night. The hair on the back feels especially pointed in American Werewolf and London direction. The song playing at the end of Vera Lynn's "We'll Meet Again" also plays at the end of Stanley Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove. That's dope. Season 5. Heather's Moonraker. The place up underneath the ground looks a lot like Moonraker, in my opinion. Miami Vice feel is definitely there. My Little Pony is definitely talked about. Promethean, see, that's where they're talking about Cyborg. That definitely happens. With the Kit Kat, okay, I don't know. Well done with the Kit Kat cash giveaway label on the hospital snack machine. Contact, which gave away $15,000 in prizes via stickers inside the foil wrapping. Oh, we'll see. That was and did read and run in 1985. See, they've done this a bunch where they're getting the wrapping accurate. Like if you go into the grocery store and the part where Elle's hurt on the floor, her leg is bandaged, and there's a package behind her that has Gizmo. I mean, it's like they went out of their way to like repackage stuff and make it look real. And it's just fascinating because it just works. It just works really well. Speaking of junk food, Hopper guzzles the legendary Jolt Cola in a convenience store. Nice touch. Oh, Jolt was like hacker's dream, baby. 1980s hackers ran off of Jolt. The news editors combining to form a giant blob is very reminiscent of, well, the Blob and also the Thing. Yes, we've said this. E pluribus unum. Episode 6. We got 2 episodes left, guys. Woo! Let's see. What else are we going to talk about? Is there anything else? I think that one's shut that one down. Shut that one down. Do we talk about this one? Oh, we'll read it. We'll try to go through that one too if it works. All right. Goodness gracious. Thank you guys for being in there, hanging in there with us. Everybody's behaving. Don't get too upset that there's no Charles. What is it? DCP in the house. DCP. You know who one of my biggest shows just came about within the last week. My Bill Klaus video has just outdone a bunch of my David Charles Plate videos, which is big props to Bill. Of course, they're buddies, and we've all known each other for quite a while. Stranger Things Season 3, Episode 6, E Pluribus Unum. As has been used before, the slime oozing mind flare screaming inches from Nancy's face is straight out of Aliens 3. It's technically not an 80s movie itself, but the franchise certainly is. The Russians call Hopper Fat Rambo. Rambo 2 came out on May 22nd, 85. So it was there. That's the one where he goes back and wins the Vietnam War for us. What a sweetheart. A worker at the Independence Day Fun Fair is shown wearing a 1982's World Fair t-shirt. A quite believable circumstance considering that that year's festivities was held in the not too distant city of Knoxville, Tennessee. The Gravitron was a very popular. Okay, now here is something that I wanted to bring up. Now, this is my big punch. This is my big part. All right, guys? This is my big part. My thesis is Holly. Holly Wheeler was the basic overall star of this entire season. And at the beginning of season 5, she's sitting with her brother, Mike Wheeler, and Mike pulls out the little doll that is basically her place in their D&D party. Now, she gets kidnapped. As we went back and we looked at season 1, we realized that when the monster tries to go through the wall, the only other person he does that for is Holly Wheeler. In fact, the episode is called Holly Jolly. Now, my theory is that one is trying to get these kids the whole time, and he's looking for special ones. And Holly is among those special kids. But in this season, she is highlighted once again as if she herself is an Easter egg. In fact, they go right up into her face as she sees the flare roaming around in the woods, and she is on top of the Ferris wheel with her parents. It's not the same actress. Now, we're going to have to look into this because it's obvious to everybody that they upped the age of Holly Wheeler to make it a better acting performance, and that she is going to be one of the main focuses for this upcoming episodes we have before New Year's hits. However, it's very interesting that that's what happens when her brother Mike is talking to her in season 5. He's like, listen, Holly, there's, this guy, Mr. What's-It. She's basically reading A Wrinkle in Time, which makes her Charles Wallace. And he's like, Mr. What's-It's telling me that there's monsters that will eat kids here in Hawkins. And he goes, Holly, there's no such things as monsters. She looks him dead in the eye and goes, I don't believe you. And the reason she says that is because she's already seen damn monsters before. She saw the monsters coming through the wall. She saw the monsters on top of the Ferris wheel. She has more information than her parents, who are completely oblivious, has. Holly Wheeler has been there the whole time. It's amazing. All right, let's see here. The Graviton was a very popular carnival ride in the 1980s and is still around today, though less common. Besides spinning riders onto until they puked, there was plenty of unsafe daredevilry to be had on this ride, and those who would attempt to stand up or come away from the wall were likely to injure themselves. Pointer Sisters' Neutron Dance plays as Alexia almost drives away from the captors. This was made popular by Beverly Hills Cop in 1985. The Indiana Jones and the Last Crusaders vibes are strong with Steve and Robin tied back to the chair. Okay, yes, that happens. It appears that the creepy ass torture doctor named Dr. Zarkov, which could be a reference to Gordon's Hans Zarkov, R. Crumb's illustrated poster for the conspiracy Stomp is a perfect item to be hanging in Murray's kitchen. Yeah. A 1969 concert featured the likes of Abby Hoffman, the cast of Hair, and no joke 50 live turkeys. Okay. Stranger Things season 3, episode 7, The Bite. The Bite. Okay, this applies to earlier seasons too, but the fair is the Rowan County Fair. This is also Rowan County, Indiana. There's a Rowan County, Tennessee. Trees moving in the distance that only the little girl mentions feels like a broad reference to the Jurassic Park movies. Yeah, because they don't understand who that is. Do you see what I'm saying? They don't understand the significance of that scene because they're not meant to. We are. Boom. All right. Still no mention of the Brood from X-Men. And still no mention of the mall being the Twin Pikes Mall. So Meta Egg, I think, is still secure in having those and only those for themselves. But, bro, that's true. We're talking about this is the Twin Paws Mall. Starcourt is the Twin Pines Mall. And they're just saying this is kid. I'm saying that this is Holly. This is important. That they actually focused in on Holly's face, seeing this monster, so that they could bring it up again later. The opening sequence of an attack at the cabin in the woods is right out of The Evil Dead, the shades of the Night of the Living Dead 2, which was the movie that eventually led to 1985's Day of the Dead. The boarded up windows look like George Romero's 1968 zombie classic, while Nancy and Jonathan grabbing axes and broomsticks is pure Sam Raimi. What does Ash suggest in Army of Darkness? Oh, yeah, get an axe. The deer head on the wall takes on a Evil Dead 2 vibe this time. The mouth within a mouth effect of the mind flare is very evocative of H.R. Geiger's alien designs. Cutting off a piece of the mind flare, which then crawls around the floor of the cabin in the woods, is also like Ash's. Okay, Evil Dead. That's the cabin. That's what I said. That his cabin becomes the Evil Dead cabin. Straight up. As appropriately patriotic. Q, Back to the Future takes on a... Here they see the other movies that were missing. Boom, they mention them here. This is awesome. Back to the Future takes a central role in this episode. On the marquee in the lobby, you might also notice that Cocoon, Fletch, Daryl, The Stuff, and Return to Oz. Some that we've mentioned, I don't know what the stuff is. Fletch being there is awesome. All playing in other theaters. There's also a Pee-wee's Big Adventure poster. I did notice that. You can also spot an Atari sign in the movie theater. Steve refers to Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future as Alex P. Keaton, which is the name of the snot-nosed yuppie in Family Ties. I didn't notice that because I just took that as it was, but that's awesome. The sitcom was on before going back to 1955. There is a full use of Alan Silvestri's Back to the Future sting when Dustin is Oh, yeah. The whole, they mix the movie with the soundtrack of Indiana 81, 89 was the name on the sign. Entering in. Okay. So they're very meticulous on their details. Mr. T's cereal was popular in the 80s. They had a whole bunch of stuff that they really picked through in the grocery store. That's all that they're talking about right there. G.I. Joe action cereal stars. Of course, G.I. Joe is coming back in this one. Awesome. When Elle is blindfolded and focusing at the grocery store, she's in front of the freezer with Eggo waffles. Yeah, she's using it as white noise. Lucas actually takes time to debate the aforementioned New Coke versus Coke. We saw some bad reviews of that whole interchange. Timeout, the classic arcade change from the 80s, shows up in the background as Steve, Dustin, Robin, and Erica flee the Russians. I'm not sure what Timeout is. Big Top Funhouse, where Hopper leads the Russian, is a classic maze of obstacles that will be familiar to many carnival goers of that era. It actually is still around today. All right, the Battle of Starcourt. This is the last one. Maybe we'll get some more stuff done because we still have plenty of time left. Let me see what's going on in the pedos. Pedos. Oh, my bad. Purple People Eaters. Ethan Hawke is blocked now. Who or am I? I don't know. Are you guys being dumb? All right, what is this? There is a burger joint in Rowan, Tennessee with the same name as the one in season 1. If I understand you correctly, that's weird. That's wild. Okay, Stranger Things, season 3, episode 8, The Battle at Starcourt. Removing the parasite in Elle's leg is very alien, and maybe even a little bit Prometheus, which came way later. Steve and company are jamming to Howard Huntberry's Your Love, which is also a tune used to save the day by the Heroes and Ghostbusters in 1989. Yeah. Well, I guess we... No, the one where the one that they used to animate the Statue of Liberty. I noticed that. Okay. That is not the song that I just sung, though, embarrassingly enough. Hopper and Joy going behind enemy lines while dressed as Russians feels like it's taken out of the dozen 80s comedies, including Stripes. Mary Bellman crawling under the enemy as Hopper seals him into the vent looks a lot like Lance Herkinson's Bishop in Aliens being sent on a mission via sliding through a pipe. Okay, yeah, I can see it. Hopper turns down. There's a better way to show all of this with the scenes back to back that other people have put together. But that's not really what we're doing here. So, Miami Vice, Resident Evil, look like a Resident Evil boss. National Lampoon's Vacation, thus Subi performed Never Ending Story, which was 1984, as we've said before, but they didn't notice that the movies also with Daryl and Cocoon were the same kid. Evil Russian receives similar scars on his face as Arnold and Terminator while battling Hopper at the end. He doesn't go away like that too. Like the guy just keeps getting up. But the fight between Hopper and this guy feels very much like Indiana Jones versus giant Nazi mechanic and Raiders of the Lost Ark, the one who he backs into a propeller. The Russian even meets a similar fate here. The newscast at the beginning of the code starts at a clock tower, which is a nod to Back to the Future. They should have just done it on that same set, man. They should have just done it on that same set. Don't you guys agree? I mean, why not? What the hell? Newscast also shouts a satanic panic. Again, the satanic thing is keeping on coming up, and it becomes really strong in season 4. But there's a lot of punches on this whole idea of Satan's baby being the firework, Hawkins being hell, Harper being the same actor as Hellboy. Let's see. The family video store employee and the arcade employee from season 2. His name is Keith, and he's played by Maddie Cardiarappel. There is a fire starter poster at the video store where Steve and Robin are applying for jobs. The movie is, of course, the Stephen King adaptation that was also a pretty major influence on 11 in season 1. And, of course, they even made a poster with her as the fire starter. And rumor has it that the initial Montauk story was written. But, of course, in season 4, they make it look like satanic panic. Like one of the ways that they get to another dimension is basically to have a seance. And from onlookers, it would look like that. And of course, like even he says, like hell is back and stuff in season 5. Like it's pushed in there. Satanic Panic gets mentioned in that video about the clowns, and they reckon Pizzagate has a minor satanic panic. I did watch one of those about the clowns, and like I say, it kind of colored the way I saw Alexia's death in Stranger Things because everything was clowns around him. And also, of course, we have the monster mouth. I mean, he almost looks like an Langolier in this season. The mind flare at Starcourt almost looks like a Langolier. Of course, Stargate's symbolism is kind of like a pentagram too. Of course, last episode we mentioned the ball prints and the pentagrams. You could see that this is referencing still, of course, Sirius. But there is like this whole magic aspect that we've talked about for the last 2 seasons too. And so it can't be like they're making sorcerers, man. They're making magicians. The movies Robin names as her favorites are Billy Wilder's masterpiece, The Apartment, Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, which is Hidden Fortress is basically the inspiration for Star Wars. Oh, it says it, the next line. And Marcel Carné's Children of Paradise. Steve's favorite movies are Animal House, Return of Jedi, and the new one with the teddy bears, The Back to the Future, which another Alex B. Keaton Family Ties shout out. The video's store clerk also refers to Star Wars as A New Hope, which he would have been very unlikely to do in 1985. One look in Phoebe Gates is in the first times at Ridgemont High Glory, or Fast Time. That cardboard cutout in a video store would cause some triggered tweets today, as would a video store still being open. There's also a Breakfast Club poster at the store, which is fast work for 80s VHS, given it opens in February. Dustin saying Max and Lucius should be on Carson is, of course, a reference to Johnny Carson, the host of Tonight Show. And the season closes in Russia with a look at one of Stranger Things' most enduring villains, the Demogorgon. And that is that. Now we have one more little thing real quick. Let's catch up and then we'll see what you guys are talking about. And then we'll move on. Still, nobody caught the ones we caught, guys. Let's see here. It's when all the Oak Ridge workers or whatever. What are you guys talking about? Oh, the liquors from Our Teeth, No Eyes. Satanic Panic gets mentioned. Pizzagate. Yeah, we talked about that. I had a revelation about Santa earlier. Just a clown in a red suit. Yep, that's true. A bit of the clown, a bit of campus. You remember we were talking about The Invisibles by Grant Morrison, and we noticed that one of the people in Collie's gang looked like somebody called Ragged Robin, who's got cheeks like a clown, and they were all wearing clown masks also. Like some of them were wearing clown masks. I don't know. Your clowns are going to haunt me now. I appreciate you contributing that, but it just adds to my nightmares. All right, Stranger Things Season 3 really does change everything in Hawkins. The highly anticipated Stranger Things Season 3 is finally here, and the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, will never be the same after July 4th, 1985. Let's now take a look at the characters and arcs of an intense eight season episode. Like, warning, this article has spoilers from 7 years ago, as well as the previous season. Stranger Things often has multiple story arcs going at once that combine later to accommodate the large cast, so I will organize this review by those arcs. Opener. As the season opens, we find ourselves in Russia during the summer of 1984 with a group of Russian scientists clearly trying to open up a gate. The party, it's summertime, and we find our kids. He comes back. They surprise him with all of the robots. Introduction to the big bad. Billy is spending his summer as a lifeguard at the pool, being drooled over by middle-aged housewives, including Karen Wheeler. He actually tries to set up a tryst with Karen, and she almost goes through with it. But seeing daughter Holly curled up sleeping on Holly, there's Holly. We have a Holly. Curled up sleeping on Ted changes her mind. Karen loves her family and doesn't want to hurt them. Billy ends up crashing his car on the way to his hookup, which leads to the mind fair latching onto him as its new host. The couple situations, with Will being slightly gay. A confused Elle goes to Max, who is trying to encourage Elle to be her own person a little. Max and Elle have a girls' day, including shopping at Starcourt Mall with whose money no one knows, ice cream pictures, and reading Wonder Woman comics. The girls also come across the boys, and Mike gets dumped. The Russian transmission, they break the transmission. That's again, a message, and again would go great as just, I mean, honestly, it just should be a game from the 80s, man. I mean, all of this should just be a video game from the 80s. The magnet situation, the Griswold family, the group quickly sorts out that it's not just Billy who's been flayed, but a whole bunch of people. They attempt to get to Miss Driscoll to see if she can guide them to where Ground Zero is, but instead Nancy and Jonathan end up in desperate fight with two of the inner flayed co-workers, while Mike manages to mend upsets with Elle. After the hospital escape, we discover the defeated to a pulp flayed, but dissolve into goo that sort of come together to make a bigger monster. No good can come of this. They escape. The Battle of Starcourt Mall. 3 months later, back in Russia. And there's really not much to go over, guys. Is there anything else that you guys want to hit up? I mean, they covered the mall. They did not cover the Twin Pines, and nobody mentioned the Brood. And I think, I don't know, like here, let's read about the Brood real quick, and when you guys can tell me if it's related or not. We'll say X-Men. Okay. The Brood are a fictional race of insectoid parasitic extraterrestrial beings appearing in American comics published by Marvel Comics, especially Uncanny X-Men. Okay, according to Dave Cochran, the Brood were originally conceived to serve as genetic subordinates to the main villain of the Uncanny X-Men 155. We had Deathbird in the particular story, and Chris had written into the plot miscellaneous alien henchmen. So I had drawn Deathbird standing in this building under construction and just drew the most horrible looking thing I could think of next to her. So it's March 82. They're out and about. The Brood exist in the X-Men comics. The Brood are an alien race of insectoid that are a specialized race, one that has evolved to reproduce and consume any available resource. Despite their resemblance to insects, the Brood have exoskeletons as well as exo. Also, unlike insects, they have fanged jaws instead of mandibles. Their skulls are triangular and flat, and a birthmark between their eyes. Their two front legs are tentacles that can use to manipulate objects. Due to their natural body armor and fangs, the Brood are very dangerous in combat. In addition, they have stingers that can deliver either paralyzing or killing venom. The Brood reproduce asexually and have no clear gender. They reduce by forcibly implanting their eggs into other sentient organisms. Each host can only support one egg. Upon hatching, the host dies as the Brood egg releases mutagenic enzymes into the bloodstream. At the same time, the brooding mentally attacks and assimilates its host. They use a hive mind to pass memory to their host, which also passes an individual's knowledge given to a brooding to the hive and back to the queen. meeting newborn brood know what any member of the race knows until the embryo gains the host body, and the embryo can only gain temporary control of the host, often without the host noticing, as the host is unaware. E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum, guys. It's that common thing that keeps coming up over and over, but it's the themes are matching with the X-Men. It's also matching with the movies of the time. It's also matching with the conspiracies of the time. That's wild. That's wild, man. It's wild. Let's see. You're talking more about Santa and stuff. Krampus, bit of cola. People also seem to have never heard of Norris Nephilim, which frost giants live, clowns, Nephilim. It's like any which one is a separate, but only by a few degrees. Santa and Satan, the Nephilim clowns, lives in a frozen region and specifically has a list of all the children on earth and who is behaving or who they get to eat. But again, Santa is very hive mindish, right? He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He's one. If we get into Santa mushroom stuff, eating shrooms is like a more grounded trip than DMT, but people have reported speaking to entities while on it. A mind-altering substance can technically open the door to other side. Of course, we talked about John C. Lilly and L's or 11's use of the deprivation tank. Other places have mentioned, of course, altered states. Twin Pines is like level 600 wizard stuff, man. It's dope, though. That's what it is. Starcourt Mall is Twin Pines Mall. Looks like a xenomorph. Yeah, exactly. Don't they have tentacles? Yes, in their face. Aliens have the same teeth things, no eyes, tentacles, basically a demigorgon. Yeah, it's like a mixture of what the demigorgons would all be. Also, many of the old demigorgon styles in D&D has this also monkey-shaped beast thing with two heads. Yeah, it had like multiple heads and stuff, sort of like Tiamat. I need to watch that. Yeah, everybody give a shout out to Zertus. But also, I mean, do as much as a favor as you can. Please like and subscribe. We're gonna be out of the loop here for a second. I tried to get this show done as quick as I could, because the state of Colorado is gonna have like an alert on wind, and the next couple of days are going to have rolling blackouts because of it. So I was trying to get this one done. We'll have the fourth season done before Christmas when the rest of season 5 comes out. Instagram, I got my store set up for Christmas here. Let's see if this works. Is this mine? It is. Right there. I'm pretty sure that I put it inside the description. But if you just look D's unit on Instagram, you'll get my clothing store of the clothes that I designed. I designed this jersey. I'll be posting the new hoodies that I've designed here soon. But if that is like attractive to anybody, you can go right here. You can find my store. And yeah, I want to thank you guys, man. Like, subscribe, do whatever you can to help us here at Meta Egg. We'll come out with the 4th Easter egg hunt, and then we'll follow up with some other videos and stuff, and then ride right on the curtails of season 5. Some other show notes that would include a bunch of people that you were talking about from SyncBook. They'll be showing up real quick here. They'll be here watching a few movies with me. I got Noah Campbell, who shows up on SyncBook a lot. He wants to watch Beau is Afraid. which is a really trippy movie and filled with all kinds of weird symbolism that we're going to basically crack open. And stay tuned for David Gill, who is the total dickhead blog spot runner who is an expert on, he lectures on symbolism, but also a really big Philip K. Dick fan. He'll be showing up here soon. And of course, my friend Zach Bowell will be, he's my bandmate, will be in a big Synchead. That's how we met. We'll be talking about Stranger Things here coming soon. I'm forgetting a bunch of them. That's all right, because that's enough. Like I said, you guys enjoy it. And we'll be talking again here real soon, man. As soon, and maybe if it doesn't shut, the state doesn't shut down because of the wind, I'll try to get something in tomorrow. If that doesn't work, like I said before, it will be definitely before Christmas. But thanks again, everybody, for watching. You guys came through in the chat group, and hit me up on Twitter at Satori on me on X if you have any more suggestions to what we should be talking about for the next season.